1 Kings 15 plunges us into the turbulent world of the divided monarchy, a period marked by political upheaval and spiritual decline. This chapter of the Bible provides a vivid portrayal of the complexities and challenges faced by the people of Israel and Judah during this era. After Solomon's glorious reign, the kingdom fractured. Solomon's wisdom and wealth had brought unprecedented prosperity, but his death left a power vacuum that led to division and strife. 10 tribes in the north formed Israel, with Jeroboam as their first king. Jeroboam, once a servant of Solomon, capitalized on the discontent among the northern tribes to establish his rule. 2 tribes in the south remained loyal to the Davidic dynasty, forming Judah, ruled by Rehoboam, Solomon's son. Rehoboam's harsh policies and refusal to lighten the burdens imposed by his father led to the secession of the northern tribes. This division was not merely political, it had deep religious and social implications. The northern kingdom of Israel quickly diverged from the religious practices established in Jerusalem, leading to significant cultural and spiritual shifts. This period in Israel's history was marked by instability and conflict. The divided kingdoms frequently clashed both with each other and with neighboring nations, leading to a cycle of warfare and unrest. The kings of Israel often promoted idolatry, leading the people astray from God. Jeroboam, in particular, established alternative places of worship to prevent his subjects from returning to Jerusalem, which further entrenched idolatrous practices. Judah, while not without its flaws, generally remained more faithful to the Lord's covenant. The temple in Jerusalem continued to be the central place of worship, and the Davidic kings often sought to uphold the religious traditions established by their ancestors. The narrative of 1 Kings 15 focuses on 2 kings of Judah, Abijah and Asa. Their reigns, though brief, are significant in understanding the broader context of Judah's history and its relationship with God. Their reigns, though brief, offer valuable insights into the challenges and opportunities faced by the Davidic kings. Abijah's short reign was marked by conflict with Israel, while Asa's longer rule brought religious reforms and relative peace. Their stories highlight the consequences of both obedience and disobedience to God. Abijah's reliance on God during battle brought victory, while Asa's later reliance on foreign alliances led to trouble, underscoring the importance of faithfulness to God's commands. Abijah, Rehoboam's son, ascended to the throne of Judah. His reign, lasting a mere 3 years, was marked by conflict and a continuation of his father's sinful ways. Despite witnessing the division of the kingdom, Abijah failed to learn from Rehoboam's mistakes. He persisted in the same idolatry that had angered the Lord and divided the nation. The writer of Kings doesn't shy away from exposing Abijah's shortcomings. He is explicitly condemned for walking in the sins of his father. This sets a somber tone for his short and ultimately insignificant reign. Even amidst Abijah's unfaithfulness, a glimmer of hope shines through. The chronicler, in a parallel account, records a battle between Abijah and Jeroboam. Even though Abijah was outnumbered, he appealed to God's covenant with David. The Lord granted Judah a decisive victory, demonstrating his faithfulness to his promises, even when his people were disobedient. This victory underscores an important theological point. God's faithfulness to his covenant with David supersedes the faithfulness of David's descendants. Even when the kings of Judah sinned, God remained committed to his promise to establish David's throne forever. Throughout Abijah's reign, the looming threat of Jeroboam, the first king of Israel, persisted. Jeroboam, fearful of his people returning to Jerusalem to worship, had established alternative places of worship in Bethel and Dan. He introduced golden calves, a blatant violation of God's law against idolatry. This apostasy had a profound impact on the northern kingdom. It led to generations of spiritual decline and ultimately contributed to Israel's downfall. The conflict between Judah and Israel was not simply a political power struggle, it was a spiritual battle for the heart of God's people. After Abijah's death, his son Asa assumed the throne of Judah. Unlike his father and grandfather, Asa embarked on a path of religious reform. He recognized the spiritual decay that had infected the kingdom and took decisive action to eradicate idolatry. He removed the pagan altars and high places that had become commonplace. Asa's reforms were not merely superficial. He understood that true worship involved a complete turning away from false gods and a wholehearted devotion to the Lord. He commanded the people to seek the Lord, the God of their fathers, and to keep his law and his commands. Asa's commitment to God was evident in his actions. He didn't just tear down pagan shrines, he actively promoted the worship of the true God. He repaired the altar of the Lord that stood before the vestibule of the temple. He gathered the people together for a time of renewal and recommitment to the covenant. The chronicler describes Asa's reign as a time of peace and prosperity. This wasn't merely a coincidence. Asa's faithfulness to God resulted in blessings for both him and the nation. His reign serves as a powerful reminder that obedience to God brings about his favor and protection. The peace that Judah enjoyed under Asa's reign was not to last. A new threat emerged from the north in the form of Baasha, the king of Israel. Baasha, like Jeroboam before him, continued in idolatry and hostility towards Judah. He fortified the city of Ramah, a strategic location on the border between the two kingdoms, to prevent the people from going to Jerusalem. Baasha's actions were a direct challenge to Asa's authority and a threat to the religious reforms he had instituted. Asa, facing a formidable enemy, was forced to make a crucial decision that would have far-reaching consequences. In a moment of desperation, Asa, the king of Judah, found himself in a precarious situation. His kingdom was under threat from Baasha, the king of Israel, who had fortified Ramah to control the movement and trade of Judah. Feeling the pressure and seeing no other way out, Asa turned to Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, for help. Asa sent Ben-Hadad a large tribute of silver and gold from the temple treasury, a sacred place meant for worship and offerings to God. He urged Ben-Hadad to break his treaty with Baasha and come to Judah's aid, hoping that this alliance would save his kingdom from imminent danger. Ben-Hadad agreed to Asa's request. He launched attacks on the cities of Israel, forcing Baasha to withdraw from Ramah to defend his own territory. This strategic move by Asa seemed to work perfectly as the immediate threat to Judah was neutralized. However, while Asa's strategy proved successful in the short term, it was a grave misstep in the eyes of God. By relying on a foreign king and using the temple treasures for political gain, Asa demonstrated a lack of faith in God's ability to deliver him from his enemies. This act of desperation and lack of faith had lasting consequences for Asa and his kingdom. The misuse of the temple treasures, which were meant to honor God, for political maneuvering was seen as a significant transgression. As we will see in the subsequent chapters of 1 Kings, Asa's decision to rely on human alliances rather than divine intervention led to a series of events that would shape the future of Judah. This story serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of faith and the consequences of straying from divine guidance. 1 Kings 15 concludes with a brief account of the end of Asa's reign. This chapter is rich with lessons that span the lives of 2 kings, Abijah and Asa, whose stories are intertwined with themes of faith, obedience, and the consequences of turning away from God. Asa, despite his many years of faithful service, suffered from a severe foot disease in his old age. This ailment was not just a physical affliction, but also a spiritual test. In his suffering, Asa chose to seek help from physicians rather than turning to the Lord for healing. This decision marked a significant moment in his life, highlighting a lapse in his otherwise steadfast faith. This final detail serves as a poignant reminder that even the most righteous individuals can falter in their faith. It underscores the importance of continually seeking God, especially in times of distress and uncertainty. Asa's story teaches us that reliance on human wisdom and resources, while sometimes necessary, should never replace our dependence on divine guidance and intervention. The reigns of Abijah and Asa offer a stark contrast between the consequences of obedience and disobedience. Abijah, who followed in the sinful footsteps of his father Rehoboam, continued in idolatry and led the people away from God. His reign was marked by conflict and instability, a direct result of his disobedience and lack of faith. Abijah's persistence in idolatry brought about divine disfavor. Despite his brief moments of calling upon the Lord during battles, his overall reign was characterized by a failure to fully commit to God. This half-hearted devotion led to a reign that was short and unremarkable, serving as a cautionary tale for those who waver in their faith. His reign was short and unremarkable, a stark contrast to what could have been achieved had he fully devoted himself to the Lord. The brevity and lack of impact of Abijah's rule stand as a testament to the consequences of a divided heart. Asa, on the other hand, turned to the Lord with all his heart. His reign was marked by significant religious reforms, the removal of idols, and a return to the worship of the true God. Asa's wholehearted devotion brought about a period of peace and prosperity for the kingdom, demonstrating the blessings that come with faithful obedience. However, Asa's later years were marred by his reliance on Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, for military support. This alliance, while politically advantageous, was a departure from his earlier reliance on God. It serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us that even the most faithful can stumble when they shift their trust from God to human alliances. The narrative of 1 Kings 15 challenges us to examine our own lives. It prompts us to reflect on where we place our trust and how we respond to trials and tribulations. Are we quick to seek human solutions, or do we turn to God first and foremost? Are we following in the footsteps of Abijah, clinging to sin and disobedience and experiencing the turmoil that comes with it? Abijah's story warns us of the dangers of half-hearted devotion and the inevitable consequences of turning away from God. Or are we striving to emulate Asa's example, seeking the Lord with all our hearts and experiencing the blessings that come with faithful obedience? Asa's life encourages us to remain steadfast in our faith, to seek God in all circumstances, and to trust in His provision and guidance. The choice is ours, and the consequences will be eternal. The stories of Abijah and Asa serve as powerful reminders of the importance of our choices and the lasting impact they have on our lives and our relationship with God. Let us choose wisely, seeking the Lord with all our hearts and walking in His ways.